Um, Good morning all. My name is Glenn Sumble and I would really like to thank everyone and welcome everyone to Parliament for our DDH seminar. It's unfortunate, it's just one of those days that we've lost a few of our participants due to bad weather. But hey, flexibility is the key to air power. We will make it happen, right? So we'll move on. Just in case this is Parliament, it's in recess at the moment, which is great because there's no MPs around. So the last thing we want is someone to be on the 6 o'clock news, getting interviewed by a political reporter. Joseph. So all good. For our presentations today, we've got an awesome lineup, fabulous lineup. I'm pretty sure every one of you will get something out of it. Make the most of the day, make most of the time with CAA. For us, this is a day where we can really engage with everyone, and we really love opportunities like this. So it's absolutely great to see everyone here. For our presenters today, what we'll do is we've got a few little cards that we use. So we've got a 5-minute mark card and we've got like a finish card. So don't worry about time. We'll put it up if you lose sense of time. So that's all good. Like I say, we will be flexible today. Just for health and safety, if you can just look at the screens for health and safety, we've got for a fire, if you just have a quick read of those, please. For the toilets are to the left there, or to your right, and just to the left, and you'll see the toilet sign, and you can just go in there. So that's all good. Taking photos, you can take photos inside here, but not outside, anywhere else. So that's all cool. And like I say, bows, we shouldn't hear anything because Parliament's in recess, so all good. So if everyone has had a chance to have a look at the health and safety, basically what I would say is follow everyone else, right? Because as soon as something happens, we'll all be going somewhere, so just follow it. So again, a very warm welcome. CAA, appreciate your time because we know it's valuable for you guys and girls out there too. So appreciate that. So straight away, what I'll do is the agenda for today. If you haven't seen it, we've got a full lineup of fabulous presenters, and I've looked at the PowerPoints and awesome, they are so good. So everyone's going to get something out of it. So let's crack into it, and I'd like to introduce you our first speaker today will be Jason Ashworth, who is our Certification Manager, Aircraft and Products. So thanks a lot and enjoy the day.
Thanks everyone. Just to explain the mask wearing, it's not because I've got COVID or anything. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Unfortunately, my 10-month-old son is still recovering from pneumonia. It's week 5 now, so this is more of a protection for him than anything else. That being said, anyone who doesn't feel comfortable not wearing a mask, you're quite welcome to do it. No judgments from CA or from anyone else, I hope. I think, he's running off there. He's actually done a lot of the stuff that I was going to talk about, which is fine. One thing, though, I know accommodation is quite expensive in Wellington, but please don't freedom camp around here. Apparently it's frowned upon. Thank you. Too soon? So I'm not going to go into too much detail today. I think it's great that everyone can meet face-to-face. I think the last time we met face-to-face for a lot of the DDHs was back in Hamilton. I'm not really sure what year it was because it's kind of all a little bit of a blur. It felt like 2019 was yesterday. I think it's great that we're all here making the time and the effort to all talk, collaborate, and hopefully we all get something out of this. I'm talking about both the CA and the DDHs. This is not a one-way forum. We want this to be as collaborative and two-way as possible. And likewise, I've noticed a lot of people are kind of sitting in camps here, like there's a Merlin camp and etc. Please use this opportunity to also mix and mingle and learn from each other as well. So today, I thought what I'd do is just talk a little bit about the regulatory strategy document that came out earlier this year. It's on our website. I'm sure all of you have read it, including the CAA personnel here. What it is, it's actually a very good introduction into what we're trying to achieve, working with industry and and internally. But it covers a lot of the stuff that we do now. It also covers a lot of the stuff that we hope to do in the near term, and it also covers a lot of the where we want to be, a lot of the aspirational targets. Bear in mind, it's the strategy for 2022 through to 27. So what I'm going to be talking about, you might go, well, hang on, I've never seen that. There's probably a good reason for that, is because we're working towards it. Later on in the agenda, David Harrison will be here and he's going to expand a little bit more on that, on the vision, so I won't go into too much detail. Let's just skip ahead. For those who are very busy, like some of our personnel, the actual document is, I think, probably like 30-odd pages long. There is also a summary in a poster form, which is only 2 pages, which makes for much easier reading. A lot of this comes straight out of there, and I'm just highlighting a couple key aspects. One of them being our guiding principles. Now, there's a lot of text there, but what I wanted to focus on was the last 2, is that a safe and secure aviation system is a shared responsibility. I know you know that, but it's just emphasizing that's why we're here today. We are talking together because it's not the CAA per se who has who owns safety or is responsible for safety. More so, it's the individuals out there participating in the system. That being said, as delegates, you wear both hats. You're a CAA some of the time, and you're a participant the other part of the time. But we have a shared responsibility in keeping aviation's safety at the forefront. The third guiding principle is around collective learning and continuous improvement. Again, that's why we're here today. Yes, we're the regulator, but we also need to learn, we also need to change, we also need to improve, we also need to lift our game. And likewise, we're hoping that we can learn something from you. Hopefully, you can learn something from the CAA today as well. In that document, there is a figure around our regulatory priorities. Most of the time, people talk about aviation risk and we being risk-based, etc. What's interesting in this diagram is risk is not on the vertical axis. It's consequence, and it's fairly deliberate. A lot of the time, we get the pushback that in air transport, commercial air transport, and I'm talking airlines, FAR 25 here, the likelihood of something is so low that blah, 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 the risk is low. The risk is only low because we've reduced the likelihood to such an extent to avoid those consequences, because the consequences of an airplane going down with 250 or 300 people or 600 people is the issue, is the main point here. So, probably telling you everything you know already, but the way we prioritize when it comes to our regulatory approach is based on the consequence. We put commercial air transport first, and everything else is a spectrum further down. When we have discussions, and we've sent a lot of messages out around our capacity, our ability to react, especially through COVID and then sicknesses and lockdowns, etc., it's just like everyone else. We had reduced capacity and we needed more lead time, and we could not come out with certifications or react as quickly as was expected or as fast as you wanted us to. That's where we lean on this model quite highly. We have to, the only ability we have as certification is we can't turn things off. We can't have applications that come and say, no, we're not going to do that, we'll do that some other time, or we just don't feel like certifying you. there's a process, we have to run the process, but our way of managing that is by sequencing. And the way we sequence is by priority like this. When it comes to innovation and new technologies, there's a real focus to aim to ensure that we don't put up unnecessary barriers to uptake in aviation system, while at the same time maintaining the aviation safety risk at an acceptable level. That's not to say that if you're a startup or emerging tech company that you've got a free pass. What it does mean is that if there are established methods of compliance and established standards, we'll be looking at using those where we can in the first instance. Because it's a tried and tested method, there's a lot of pedigree behind those requirements. Where they're not appropriate, that's where we need to think a little bit outside of the box and try and meet the same intent, maybe through a different method. This is clearly something that we're all working on, we're all struggling with. Certification, if you think of Gaetano's team as product certification, we are pretty much the implementers of assessing applications to a set criteria. At the same time, we're trying to figure out for a lot of these projects what the criteria is and what the bar is. Here we need to work closer with yourselves as the DDHs and those who are actually on the ground doing it, to understand where you're coming from, understand that you've gone through all the iterations of what the risks may be, and so that we can move forward together. There's a lot around intelligence-led and risk-based approach. To some degree, a lot of this we're doing already. There's also a lot of work that is going on internally that we are better equipped using the data that we received either through occurrence reports, incident reports, or through surveillance and monitoring around adjusting the way in which we do things. I know David will talk a lot more about this particular topic later, so I won't harp on too much about this. The risk-based, however, approach, particularly in product certification, is pretty well ingrained in terms of if we have a design approval for a FAR 23 aeroplane, we treat that quite differently to whether there's a design approval, say, for a FAR 25 aircraft, because that criteria is already ingrained in the design standards. When it comes to the emerging tech stuff we saw earlier, we have to try and apply that spectrum through the murky waters of non-established standards. Now, a key focus of late is around the capacity and the capability of our operational personnel. I've already mentioned the messaging that went out around our ability to respond to applications. We've put out messaging asking that if anyone applies to us that it is a complete application. We will be turning off stuff where we don't have a complete application because of the sequencing issue. Is we can't sequence you in the queue ahead of people that have complete applications that can go through assessment, because it forms bottlenecks throughout the process. In terms of capability, we are looking at new ways of, or I say new, but new in the COVID world. I guess more in the old ways we used to bring a lot of courses from overseas here and then share some of the seats. We'll be looking to do that again, and I'd be quite keen to hear from you either in the breaks or through the forum that we have later around where you might see some capability gaps on either side of the fence. The more we understand that it's not so much to dig and go, therefore, we need to take away a certain delegation from so on because they're unsure of that. That's not the purpose here. What we're trying to get is where do we need to improve? Where do we need to plug the gaps? Because maybe with a combined effort or combined resourcing of throwing half the CAA team and half industry team on a course, we can do that. And we can share the costs, especially now with the increase in travel, etc. So that's all I really wanted to touch on today. I'm going to leave the rest for Gaetano to talk a little bit more product certification centric. For those of you who are interested and need some bedside reading, those are the two links. The first one is the full-on document, and the second one is that sort of poster format. It is worth having a brief review through to see where we are actually heading in terms of the way we work as a CAA. That's all I had for today. So I am going to be ducking out very soon, but I will be coming back around lunchtime as well. But in the meantime, I'll hand it over to Katana. Thank you.
Thank you for those that have made the rough journey today. It has been a year and a half approximately since our last in-person design delegation seminar. I was not the team lead at the time, and we did manage to have a brief virtual seminar earlier this year, which a number of you were on the call for. So good to see you all in person again. As Jason said, I'll be talking about kind of what's going on with the PC unit, just for your awareness, and I'll speak to kind of some of the larger what I see as larger takeaways from some of this stuff. And also try to talk about kind of where we're going in the future, what we see some of the key challenges as being in our work area. And I don't just mean that I mean industry as well, DDHs and participants. So we've actually been under capacity for about a year and a half since I actually came into the team lead role. We were nominally a team of 8. We've been down to a team of 6 for quite some time. But the good news is next week we will be back to a team of 8. I have 2 new staff starting next week. That has been a process to get them over, but we are very much looking forward to them joining the team and adding capacity. For those of you that were either watching or attending the Aerospace Summit in Christchurch, you would have seen the announcement from the ministers, Stuart Nash, about the additional funding coming to CAA. That has allowed us to go out and start recruiting for a 9th product certification full-time position. So we are in the middle of that right now, and we are hoping to have someone identified here in short order. And if we're lucky, they'll be in the team start of the new year. So it'll be a big change, a 50% increase in capacity potentially by the start of 2023, which will hopefully alleviate some of that backlog and workload that we've been seeing for quite some time. Current workload. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly, but this is not here to say, this is why we're not getting back to you. This is just more of a state of the system right now, to kind of give you an idea of what's going on across the design space in New Zealand right now. So current type amendments and type validations that I would consider active, there are 4. STCs, so what you're seeing is the number of applications we've gotten across fiscal year 2022, which would have ended last June. So I have not included the 2023 numbers yet because they're quite incomplete, obviously. And then we have 19 open active STC work requests right now for a team of 6. Major and minor modifications or design changes. We do get minor design changes that come to us periodically. We try to send them to the 146-way as best we can, but some people insist on coming through us. The one-off major design change authorizations are always hopping, and you can see the numbers there, and there's 16 of those active right now as well. And even though they're short order jobs in most cases, it does take quite a bit of time. It's quite a busy space. Design delegation issues or renewals. We had quite a few number of these last year, relatively speaking. Quite a few people coming back into the design delegation system or expanding. So that was, to me, is a good sign that the activity is increasing and that people are seeing the value of both individually and organizationally of having design delegation holders, which we do rely on quite a bit to kind of be that bridge and that advocate for CAA and industry. Validations. This is incoming and data access. This is not so it's going out to other NAs. This was coming to us. Again, reasonable number. These can, and the numbers don't tell the whole story, unfortunately. It's very hard to put up in a single PowerPoint slide the degree of effort required for some of these things. Some are pretty short order. We just need to accept the standard for a specific piece of equipment. Others are large swaths of, I want to be able to put any STC from EASA on all these aircraft. That is not captured in here, but it does add quite a bit to the workload. So 9 of those active right now. Total active work requests. strictly that are our own within our own unit, 58 right now across the entire team. That does not include other support we provide to things like the people who work in our 102 and novel and emerging technology spaces. Does not include support to some of the operational approvals where we have touch point on. So when Jason says the team is quite busy, we really do mean it. But it is, to me, is a sign that the design activity is quite healthy and active and is seeing a similar rebound with that of the actual travel that we're reading about all in the news. Airlines are getting back as quick as they can, and they need the design support. They need to either keep their products active or start thinking about refreshes. And it's all the way from top from New Zealand right down to your mom and pop operator on the South Island doing tourism. So it is a pretty busy time, and especially with and even though we see a lot of news about emerging tech and whatnot, I think across the board there's a lot of excitement happening, and beneath all the debates and the back and forth between us and yourselves, there is generally a lot of excitement and activity, appreciation for the activity that's going on. Future work. Some things you'll may recognize from the last time because they have not had much chance to progress. So we just got through the security audit for the AvSec side with IKEA. The actual CAA audit has now been pushed into 2023. And that is going to require some of my team's time to go through the product certification aspects of the audit. So if you hear us saying, sorry, we're not available because IKEA is here, that's what's happening there. The new civil aviation bill is still progressing. That has slowed somewhat, but that has involved me and my team's time to a small degree. I keep hearing 18 months for that to get across the line, and 6 months go by and it's another 18 months. So I can't tell you when it's going to happen, but it is in work right now, and we've been supporting our policy team, making sure that nothing in our Part 21 space or the 146 space gets inadvertently changed or misinterpreted or reinterpreted in a way that's not appropriate. What may be of interest to you, a lot of you, we have been engaging with the FAA on our current bilateral and discussing updates to that bilateral for probably about 9 months now. Our point of contact with the FAA on this has changed recently. The woman's name is Catherine Ducheski, who's now the FAA assigned to Pacific and New Zealand for these matters. Some of you will have seen her on some of the calls we had with FAA and some of your specific projects. Currently, we are in the space of just looking at, what is the groundwork behind the bilateral that supports all of this, and making sure that is current. APAC, the Asia-Pacific Partners meeting, is coming up in a week and a half, and we will be meeting with them to kind of progress that along. So if anyone has any thoughts on the bilateral, the IP provisions, or things that they find particularly annoying, by all means, let me know. If appropriate, I can try and discuss them with the FAA. Publication of technical guidance. So some of you might remember I mentioned this, talking about publishing CERT memos back in the virtual seminar a few months back. That has unfortunately just had not been able to progress because of the high workloads. And also we are making sure that anything we do publish is in line with the overarching CAA policies and requirements around the development of guidance material. It's still early stages. We are still very much intending to do this at some point. The shape, form, and timing, unfortunately, is quite murky right now. But that being said, I'm sure all of you at one point or another said, why won't CA publish more guidance on this area or this particular issue? So we are open to suggestions on areas you think would be worthy of specific technical guidance, either an update to an AC or something along the lines of what I'll call a memo, for lack of a better term. For now, it won't actually probably be called a memo in the end. Likewise, AC 146, we've probably mentioned this a couple of years now that we're going to need to update it again. It has not been forgotten, but again, with the resource constraints we've had, we've basically had to pick and choose what gets done now, gets done later. And we are trying to support you and your activity as the high priority currently. Future challenges. We're going to hear from Dave Weston a little bit about Part 23, Amendment 64, but this is still early stages, and I fully expect to find more challenges as we do more CERT projects that have to end up in this space. We are learning a lot in real time as we go through our first project in this space. And so is the FAA, for that matter. Even though it's their rule set, there are still things that they haven't quite figured out yet. And we're having a lot of free and frank and sometimes slightly frustrating discussions on how does this actually work in practice. So I won't steal Dave's thunder too much. I'm sure he's got quite a bit to say on that. So, but yeah, for those of you that work in the Part 23 space and are expecting to go into Amendment 64 in the near future, definitely start asking questions, start doing research now where you can. Establishment of standards and methods, means of compliance for new technologies, and this is not just our drones and our quadcopters. We're talking things like, even though it's not super new, additive manufacturing is still somewhat early days for MOCs. It's only in the last year or two I've seen more standards being come out of out of ASTM and some of the research labs over in the U.S. around how you qualify AM parts and materials, electric engines and novel power technologies, hydrogen, whatever it is. Again, still reasonably early days from a certification perspective. The technology itself is rapidly maturing, but from a qualification perspective, there's still a lag there, and unfortunately, that's kind of how it goes in most cases. But even in these remote operated spaces, we are very much being pushed and challenged in how we go about certifying something from a performance-based perspective, where we've got 50 plus years of specific, bespoke requirements. So there's a huge learning curve. There are going to be a lot of disagreements in this space, but we are, as Jason said, very much trying to move into the future and work as hand in glove as we can with industry on this to understand what good looks like in this space, how we can get the assurances that we need consummate to the risk that these vehicles and operations present. And lastly, validation. This is not a new challenge, but it has kind of become refreshed in a way. And this is very much related to the IPA. So, just a reminder, there will be post-seminar refreshments today. So, I do want to, again, thank you very much for making the time to come down here today. We've said it time and time and again, and it'll be said time and time and again throughout the day and forever and more. There is no breaks a lot of times that we're all working at or beyond capacity. So, but I think it speaks to the value of this kind of format that we do make the time to get together and kind of create space to have these discussions, these face-to-face meetings, and ask, free, frank, and difficult questions, and work in good faith with each other. So, once again, my sincerest thanks for all of you for coming down today. So, I will not be taking questions simply just because we do have a full lineup today. Who do we have up next? So, I'm going to introduce Dave Weston real quick. Most of you will know Dave. He has been part of the New Zealand design community for quite some time now. Originally from the UK, working at Airbus, right? And he's, obviously a well-known figure. He's worked at Air New Zealand, which eventually became Altitude, was the design manager at Airwork for a number of years, and now is the certification manager at Merlin, working on their new STC, which I will let him have the glory of explaining what's going on there. So please welcome Dave. Thank you.